All right.
Oh yeah, I'm back.
Howdy folks, Matty with Gulf Coast Fit. Joining me once again, Danny from Breck. And today we are running through a hip strengthening and hip mobility routine. Yes, this is a good tri-set. That's 3 exercises in a row for the same objective. It's a great tri-set to build muscle, to build a little bit of stamina since we're doing 3 sets in a row. But the underlying goal here is to address hip mobility and ultimately to help increase your longevity when you're training in the weight room. We like to pump iron, we like to go heavy, we like to feel the burn, we like the soreness to set us back. But in the big picture, if we're doing that year after year, decade after decade, it's just not in our best interest, and it doesn't do us justice for training into our 40s, 50s, 60s. And a little secret, I'm not in my 20s anymore, so I have to keep things like this in consideration. So we're going to run through 3 variations of some standard exercises, one of which is a barbell squat, but we'll be going with a Zercher squat. I like it because you can get really deep, you can pry your hips open a little bit, hence the hip mobility aspect. Having the Zercher variation cradled in your arms with the barbell is much more demanding on your thoracic spine. You can hear the herd in the background as usual, nothing new. It demands much more core recruitment than even a front squat. We'll be moving on to a bridge variation. Now we're going to take our normal hip thrust or bridge, whatever you want to call it. We're going to turn it into a frog bridge, which opens up the hips, helps you focus on a lot more external hip rotation, a lot more glute medius, external rotators. Very important for not only hip health, to stave off the hip replacements, but great for knee health. Because as we know, weak external rotators can kind of cause your knees to collapse, especially when you're doing things like heavy squats. This bridge variation helps you undo that shortcoming. And then we'll be lunging across the room doing a lunge variation where we once again emphasize a little bit more on the outer glutes, glute medius, outer hips, and we enhance the range of motion of the hip joints, knee joints, and ankle joints a little bit with a short stride lunge. So without further ado, we're going to hop on the squat rack. We're going to start with a set of Zercher squats specifically designed for the hip mobility aspect of this. So you can see Danny's got the barbell cradled in her elbows. She's going to work her way down into her deepest, bestest squat until her elbows are on the inside of her thighs. So let's work it down nice and easy. Now while she's down there, she's going to hang out. She's going to pry the thighs open a little bit with her elbows. She's hugging on for dear life. That's part of the training here. Take a big breath. And now stand up aggressively. Boom. Nice. Let's come on down again, nice and slow. Look at how deep we can get in a Zercher squat. We can pry the knees open, stretching the adductors, drive it back up. Yep, we'll go to 5 reps. And in my opinion, Zercher squats are best served between 3 and 8 reps. Hugging that bar in tight and having this barbell and this external load closer to the center of your mass here. It helps work you down in your good deep squats. Is that 4 or 5?
4.
All right, way to be honest with it. Hang out a little longer, spread them open, big breath, drive it up, yeah! Nothing like a Zercher squat. All right. Solid. So once again, having this barbell in the crook of your elbows and the weight in general closer to the center of mass, it helps. You can use the weight as an assistance to get you down nice and deep, and while you're down here, you can push the elbows outward, work the hip mobility. Depending on how heavy your load is, you can even shift around a little bit just to give your hip joint, the ball and socket joint, a little massage down there. I was picking on Danny by giving her a good long pause rep at the bottom. You know I like my intensity techniques. Awesome. We're moving on to the frog bridge right here. Now you don't have to have a bench, but we've got one, so we're going to put it to good use. You don't have to have a Bulgarian bag, but I'm going to slide it under her feet just to increase the range of motion a little bit. Slide down a tiny bit more. Slide this forward a tiny bit more. So you see we've got Danny here with the hips externally rotated, knees flared out. This external rotation is what makes these frog bridges gold in the weight room. Gold for your hip longevity, your hip mobility, and once again staving off the hip replacements that I see way too often in my own personal training clients, especially in people who have been athletes throughout their life. They've taken a beating. So we're going to go up into a bridge. We're going to pause. We're going to come down nice and slow. As soon as her butt taps the ground, we're not resting. We're thrusting right back up. So she's just making contact with the ground. That way she doesn't disengage the posterior chain muscles that we're attacking. We're just touching for good range of motion. Going up at the top, just like any bridge or hip thrust or hip extension exercise, we're thinking about a posterior pelvic tilt, which means she's kind of mentally thinking tuck the tailbone under, tuck the belly button in, almost as if she's trying to straighten out her lower back a little bit. This is a better exercise, better option to do a little higher volume, work up a real good glute burn in the hamstrings, glutes, glute medius. You're going to feel it in your lower back too. That's part of the posterior chain training. There's a lot of calves involved here too. For bridges in general, I like somewhere between 10 and 20 reps. We're going to get 5 more. You feeling it yet? Yep. All right. 4 more. 1 more. Let's give it a big pause at the top. And I always keep it up. I always tell people, squeeze so hard you feel like you're going to give yourself a butt cramp. Now slowly come on down. Slowly, yeah. Last rep, you may as well throw a slow eccentric in there because, woo, look at it. Love it. Solid. All right. Hop on out of there. Excellent. Yeah. All right. We're going to move right into our lunge variation. This is a short stride lunge. With short stride lunges, you are required to put your ankles, knees, and hips through a slightly greater or a lot greater range of motion than a typical lunge. And what we're going to do is add a little tilt and add a little twist to it, because our objective here, once again, with the hip health and the external rotators of your hips, is to load them a little bit more, stress them a little bit more, and get them used to engaging in your exercises, even if you aren't doing these types of variations. So, without further ado, let's rock and roll. Well, you're going to see a few things here, a few differences with your standard lunge. Danny's taking a pretty short stride, short steps. You can see how much the ankles, knees, and hips have to flex and extend. Good joint range of motion, emphasis there. You can see that she's tilting forward a little bit on the way down and twisting the weight in the direction of the leg that she's loading. And the idea there is to help load the outer sweep of your hip, glutes, IT band region. All right, let's spin around and head back. Now, as with most any exercise, you are your own best judge. When movement patterns are new to you, when variations are new to you, it's important that you feel things out. Danny's strong. She lives at 10,000 feet elevation. She's got amazing calves. That tells us that she has a big work capacity and she can handle a lot in the gym. But I'm giving her this baby weight to work with because this is a new variation for her. And I want her to feel the movement and be able to feel like she's engaging the right muscles, doing the movement pattern correctly without having to load herself down with a heavy set of lunges like she might be used to. Awesome. How's it feel?
Feels good.
Great. All right. We're gonna run one more round through all that. We're gonna up the ante a little bit. Man, I might not have told her that.
I'm not telling you.
All right. So this time, Danny, hop in there. I'm gonna have her facing the other way so you can see a different point of view here. I like Zercher squat starting from the rack too, because it just forces you to start at the bottom of your squat. That's an added benefit in my opinion. So shimmy on under there. Crook your elbows, big breath, squat it on up. And then you're going to step forward out of the rack. All right, take your squat stance, Zercher squat stance. Now watch the hip mobility, ankle, knee mobility here. Pry the knees open, nice pause, drive it up. That bar path is straight down, always staying over the arches of her feet. She's always hugging the bar in, squeezing it in. There's 2, we'll go to 5. Gotta love Zercher squats because of the fact that they're so demanding on your thoracic spine and your core. We won't let the bar collapse you and pull you forward. So you've always got to extend your thoracic spine, and your abdominals actually push backwards here like a reverse crunch or reverse sit-up. All right, awesome. Shimmy on backwards. And come on down. All right, solid. Moving right into our frog bridges. We're going to speed the tempo up a little bit. We're adding a little bit more load here. We're going to get 20 reps. Focus on that posterior pelvic tilt at the top of each bridge. Big glute contraction. Crank them out. There's 5. Now think about pushing the soles of your feet together. 6. Push the ankles down into the Bulgarian bag. Squeeze the outside of your glutes, trying to cramp them up. Posterior pelvic tilt. Belly button tucks in, tailbone tucks under. Nice. Now let's speed them up. Speed them up for 10. 1, down. 2, down. Find the burn, build the burn. 3, 4. This is what we're used to in the gym. 5, 6, 7. Find it, milk it. 8, 9, and won't hold it against you. Happens to me all the time. All right, let's go and saddle up for our short stride, twisting, tilting lunges. Can't give you the official name for these because I have not given them an official name yet. And you know me, I like to come up with new variations. So right now it's a short stride, twisty, tilty lunge. As long as you know what your intentions and objectives are, then you're golden.
I swapped.
Touch yourself, touch yourself. Once again, the 3, if you're going to take 3 of the techniques here that are making this effective to load and address the outer hips, it's the short stride, because look at how much the hips have to flex and extend. It's the tilt forward, a little bit of a hip hinge, a little bit of a tilt, and it's the shift and twisting of the weight towards your front leg. All right, let's head on back. Naturally, when I'm working out and I'm doing this variation, there's a lot of very vertical, steep arching movement here. I'm thinking that I'm lunging across the room in kind of a McDonald's arch pattern. And we can all picture that McDonald's arch, and that's surely what we're all thinking about when we're doing lunges. Gotta earn those fries. Sweet. Woo! Ma'am. Alright, come on over here. How's it feel, Danny?
Good.
Alright, now.
Oh.
Now that you're huffing and puffing, give us a little feedback. For you personally, these are slightly new variations for you, right?
Yes.
With the Zercher squat, what do you feel is the most challenging technical aspect of it that someone who might be trying this for the first time, like what's something troubleshooting wise that they should think about?
I would say getting your stance just right so that your hips are, you're thinking about your knees going out so your hips are wide so you can get a really deep squat. But this is really helpful with keeping your back straight, not putting any strain on your lower back. So I really like it.
That's a great point. And don't be afraid to play with your stance, especially when you're just feeling the movement pattern out. Do a couple reps with a certain stance, then adjust it a little bit, do a couple reps, before you go loading a barbell or any additional weight, don't be afraid to fine tune the stance, because that sets the foundation for the movement pattern. So I'd say that's maybe the most important thing that Danny just touched base on. As far as the frog bridges are concerned, what do you feel like is a key element to think about when you're executing those?
Again, I think getting your stance just right so that keeping your feet together gives you that rotation of your hips to really get the glutes working as you're going, and like controlling and keeping your stomach tight, your back straight, and being able to do the hinge with it keeps you really working on the glutes all the time.
Now, Danny already told me she likes some hip thrusts, and that is a sign of a wise gym goer. But how did those feel different than your standard stance barbell bridge?
I do feel like with the bridge, you really have to focus on doing shortened movements in a hip thrust to make sure it's just on your glutes and not so much hamstrings. And this gives an easier focus on your glutes than getting just all your legs.
Right, and that's what we were going for. And then with the lunges, there's kind of a lot going on there. There's a lot of things that could go right or wrong, but for you, what are one or two things?
Yeah, I really feel like the twist really helped engage my core and get the stretch just right for the glutes. And I think the shortened movement was really good for getting that, again, concentration on the glutes.
Cool. Did you try this again in Breck?
All of them.
All right, great. And just a quick note, all of these movement patterns you can do without any load. You don't have to be in a gym. You don't have to have any equipment. You can go down into a Zercher squat, pry the knees open like a deep yogi squat, work the movement pattern, work the mobility. You can do frog. Yeah, you can do frog bridges on the ground with no bench, or use a stair or a ledge or anything. You can do lunges in the same fashion with no weight and obviously no gym. So don't let the lack of equipment slow you down from practicing these movement patterns, practicing your mind-muscle connection, and still building some strength and stamina and the hip mobility and the hip integrity that we're addressing in this. So you don't always have to go heavy like Danny. You go light like me.